The Women's Fund for Scotland is Scotland's only dedicated fund for women and girls. I'm Susan Morrison, and this is our podcast where we talk to inspiring women improving the lives of those women and girls today. In this episode, Fiona tells us how Jubilee House helps women escaping domestic abuse take the first steps to freedom. Jubilee House. Can you just tell us a little bit about, it's a fantastic name, Jubilee House. Can you just tell us a little bit about it?
Jubilee House is a charity situated in the west end of Paisley. We were originally set up to help women escaping domestic abuse. Since then, we've kind of grown and expanded a wee bit to encompass really all women in the community, with a view to helping them with empowerment and mental health and well-being as well. So we're very concerned about these things, mainly because of the pandemic and all the problems that it threw up. So the need in the community is great.
So you do this do you hold workshops or give advice, or do you welcome women through your door?
All of the above, really. We started off with the garden group as we were coming out of lockdown, just because it was a way of getting people out of isolation. But we also run a thing called the Freedom Programme. That's a 12-week course that teaches all about the dynamics and behaviours of a perpetrator of domestic abuse. So that's like a recovery course. It's free to participants, and it was developed by a lady called Pat Craven. She used to be a probation officer and dealt with many, many, many hundreds of perpetrators. She got to know their thoughts, what they did, why they did it, and they were quite open and honest with her. So she learned the tactics and behaviours of every abusive man. And she thought to herself, well, why is nobody telling the women about this? So she wrote the Freedom Programme, and it's helped thousands of women, especially in England, but it is now moving up here to Scotland. And I was trained by Pat Craven herself, which is very unusual.
I suddenly feel as if I'm speaking to the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
And you know, she used to say to them, if you had a 15-year-old daughter, what would you say to them about spotting bad guys? And they started telling her all this stuff, and she's like, wow. So they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
It's fascinating that you teach how to spot the behaviour, because you would think, well, these women would know it because they've come through it. But do you find that it comes as a bit of a shock?
Total shock. Nobody's prepared for this. I mean, you can't imagine that this person who you supposedly love is just in it to destroy you. I mean, that's beyond belief, really. So we spend our entire time in denial, trying to make excuses and trying to kind of figure out why this behaviour is happening. So nobody knows why, you know, and nobody knows the red flags before they happen. So, bringing this to the public's attention is really important. We want to teach the new generations coming through how to spot it, what it looks like, what to do if it happens, so that hopefully in the future we can, as close to eradicate it as we possibly can.
That's a great approach. Actually, what you just said, red flags. Making people aware of this behaviour before it becomes an issue in your life, not their life. So the Women's Fund for Scotland, you got a grant from them, and what did you use that for?
And what it was furniture and a television for one of our rooms so that we can hold meetings in there. We do a lot of videos and things like that, teaching women about stuff. So part of the Freedom Programme that we run actually has a little video for each session. So we play those through the television, and we sit around the tables, and everybody learns and kind of grows, heals, and we have a laugh as well. So yeah, that's what we used that money for.
So how does Jubilee House, how does it reach out to the women that it's helping, or do they come to you?
A bit of both, actually. It's quite a big problem, actually. How do you reach the public? How do you let them know that you're here? Because most people will say, I've never heard of you before. And that's going to happen for a while, I think, because we are fairly new still, and reaching out into the public is no easy task. We've put adverts on the radio. We've done a lot of networking with agencies around about, in the community. So gradually, the social work department, police are getting to know us and starting to refer ladies to us. But probably, actually, most women come to us through word of mouth because they're so blown away by what happens here that they just want to tell everybody else about it.
And you mentioned the sort of a program that they get through, that women go through, and then and at the end of it, it must be really satisfying. Do you see a change in these women?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The change is just phenomenal because as you go through the sessions, I mean, to begin with, everybody's breaking their heart. I mean, sobbing, crying, all the rest of it. By the end of it, that perpetrator has been brought down to zero and everybody just laughs at him. You know, the change is phenomenal. They learn to notice like red flags everywhere around them, you know, and they apportion it to a certain behaviour. So that cements in their mind, yeah, that is actually an abusive behaviour. So it's so empowering. These women are really empowered. And when they finish, they want to do something to change it. They want to help the other women that are going through it in Scotland, you know, and they sit there and they're like, oh, we all get on our soapbox. I'm afraid we really do. And we try and think of ways, you know, to stop this because it's just crazy. It's all just bad behaviour. So yeah, we're constantly trying to look for places, you know, ways of achieving that. And it does always come back to education. Everybody's like, if I'd known about this in school, it never would have happened to me. And that is a big key to changing this, really.
Oh, that is a big key changer, isn't it? Are you thinking of expanding your operations to work with younger women?
Yeah, definitely. We're in the process of putting together a mother and daughter group, and that's for girls aged 12 and above. And the reason for that is really because Scottish Women's Aid did a big survey of the demographic of women aged 12 to 25. It's called the RISE report, and you can find it on their website. And it found that 36% of the women in that demographic had already been in an abusive relationship. We were horrified. And
36%.
Yeah, we've got to do something about this. And it also highlighted that in the schools, there really isn't anywhere for them to go if they feel they are in an abusive relationship. There wasn't even 1% said that they felt confident that there's somebody they could go to. So what's going on?
Yes, there's a power of work to be done in there then. The way that you're talking though about working with women, you're working with them, and they're working with you. It's a two-way street, communication. Would you say that's part of how you go about your work? Is that you're not laying down the law, you're discussing stuff?
Yeah, everything we do, we take our cues from the women. There's nothing we would try and do on our own backs. You know, all of our cues, all of our suggestions, ideas, wants, needs, everything all comes from the women. And when they say we should do, I listen very carefully. And I take note of what they're saying. And if it is feasible, then we'll try and do something along those lines, and we'll try and get funding and all the rest of it. And so far, we've been pretty successful. In fact, one of our ladies who came to us in the beginning, she was completely broken. It was awful. And she does yoga and holistic stuff in the past. So as time went on, we watched her growing, and then we decided, why don't we start a wee yoga class here for the ladies? And she was up for that, you know, and her confidence grew to the point when she's now the holistic services manager here at Jubilee House. So that's what we do. We bring them up and we try and help them to get on their own path, whatever that might be. We've got a lot of connections and things as well. And we try and empower them to do whatever it is that they want to do to change that path, you know.
You just mentioned networking. One of the things that the Women's Fund for Scotland has, as well as the ability to make grants, it has networks and support groups that you could link into. Is that something that's important for you as well as the money?
Absolutely essential. You know, the more connections and things that we have, the better, because there's none of us can do this on our own. You know, we are stronger when we band together, and all those connections are made. There's no doubt about it. And that's definitely the way to go. And that's what we've been concentrating on in the last few months, especially, is networking with other groups, organisations, as well as agencies in the area, you know, just getting the word out there and banding together. You know, we can do this for you. You know, we're quite a big building here, which is primed and ready to go. So we can offer that. If there's a group that's got something that they do that empowers women, then we'll let them do it here for free, because it kind of ticks all our boxes and it ticks their boxes. So, yeah.
That's a really big-hearted offer, that. And it must be quite comforting then to know that the Women's Fund for Scotland's on your side.
Very much so, yeah. I mean, this is a great initiative. It really is. So yeah, we're totally on board. We love to kind of partner with our grant funders. We really do put a lot of effort into connecting and keeping up with our grant funders, because obviously they're going to fund us in the future, and that helps our women. That's our bottom line. That's what we want to do. So anything that helps our women, helps them to grow and empower them, then that's what we spend our time doing. So the Women's Fund for Scotland is right up our street. I mean, we love it. We love talking about it.
Women's Fund Facts. In Scotland, you're never more than 50 miles away from a project funded by the Women's Fund for Scotland. I often wonder how people working in the sector like you keep in such good spirits. Why have we still got this problem? I'm not asking you to answer that question straight away, because if you have, here's a whole load of money, go and solve it. But why is it still here? Why are women still dealing with these people? What's going on?
I mean, it's absolutely nuts, isn't it? Do you know it costs Scotland £2.3 billion every year? For domestic abuse. And that comes down to things like days lost from working, women who can't go into work because their perpetrator won't let them or is beating them up so bad. It goes on like medical provision, mental health problems, all these things, and also things like 25% of all operational time at the police force is spent on domestic abuse. 25% of all their time is spent on domestic abuse. So if you add all of that up, then the Scottish Government puts that figure at £2.3 billion every year on domestic abuse. And it is all completely needless. It's just bad behaviour. And that money actually pales into insignificance when you think of the lives that are lost and ruined, both women and their children, through this. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. It's horrifying. So, yeah, that just gives you an idea how big that problem is just here in Scotland.
So, in other words, if they just took great organisations like yourselves, brought them all together and gave them £1 billion, we'd still be, and to tackle the issue, we'd still be 1.3 billion quid up on the deal.
Yeah, but you'd have to allow us to put them all in prison and things like that. If you ask me, I mean, my way of dealing with it would be, first of all, education. That's very, very important. And also having people that kids and all the rest of it can go to. I mean, people in key spots who can actually help, who are trained to help. And then the judicial system, that needs to get sorted right out from start to finish, and much, much greater punishments for domestic abuse. They got to know that we're onto them and that they're not going to get away with it. Hold them accountability. So those kind of key factors, I believe, would be the way to go.
I don't know, were you thinking of running for First Minister?
Definitely not. Not when you see what's happened to the previous one.
No, but it's really, I could practically hear your arms cross and go, and the judicial system has to be sorted right out. I thought, do you know, I would leave Fiona in a room with a pad, a pencil, and for an afternoon she'd have a whole lot sorted out by tomorrow morning. I
wish. If anybody would listen to me.
But are things getting better? Are they getting better?
Well, that's a very good question, actually. I mean, we've got a new law, the Coercive Control Law, which came in 2018. And that made it a criminal offence to, it's all about behaviours rather than thumping somebody. It's more than physical abuse. It's verbal, sexual, psychological and financial abuse it covers. So that is now a criminal offence, and there have been convictions for it. So that's probably been the biggest step forward. And it was a bunch of really amazing women that made that happen. Absolutely incredible. But has it gone far enough? Well, if you look at the figures, 65,000 calls to Police Scotland every year about domestic abuse. That figure has not changed. Oh. Is it getting any better? I don't know. Well, it's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
But yeah, we need to go further. There's not enough being done. That's obvious. I mean, really, there needs to be a big shake-up.
But there are organisations like yourself now.
Mm-hmm.
So you are making a difference.
We're making a difference to the ladies who come through our doors. At least two of them have said that if it hadn't been for Jubilee House, they wouldn't be here.
What an accolade.
It's sobering, though, especially when you put it in the light that I'm going to give you another statistic here.
Fire away.
There's 30 women in the UK, right enough, not just Scotland, but 30 women in the UK every day attempt suicide as the only way of escaping domestic abuse. And that's how brutal and how awful it is. That's their only way out. There's absolutely nothing else for them. So that is a statistic that's a bit worrying, to say the least.
It is a bit worrying, and I'm fascinated. Let's take back to the beginning for a minute, Fiona, because you're called Jubilee House. Is that because of the building that you were in, or something, or?
Well, it was really the building, because it all started with the building being donated, and that's what really kind of kick-started the whole thing. So they decided to call it Jubilee House because they wanted it to be a place of jubilee, of change, you know.
I think it's not so much the word jubilee, it's house. You see, because for anyone, a house should be a refuge from the world. It should be a comfortable place. It should be your sanctuary. But for these women that you're working with, it's not. It's the very place that abuse happens. But you're reclaiming that word, that concept of a house for them.
Yeah, definitely. In the beginning, we did intend to start as a refuge, but going through the process, it just proved to be really difficult. In fact, to the point when it was pretty much impossible. And we thought, right, well, what can we do to help? So we went back to the drawing board, and that's when we decided to start all our groups and all the rest of it. And thank goodness we did, because if we'd gone as a refuge, we would have only been able to help 3 women at a time. At the moment, we're helping loads and loads of women. In fact, during lockdown, we took the Freedom Programme online and helped more than 300 women throughout the UK. So, I mean, doing it this way is much, much better. And for me, and for all the women who come to Jubilee House, when you walk in the doors, it's like being given a big hug. I don't know, there's just something about the place that's really warm and welcoming. And as I always say to my ladies, this is their safe place. This is the place where they can speak. They're safe, nothing's going to be repeated. And so this is their place to share and to grow and to recover.
Do you know, Fiona, what you told us about the state of domestic abuse and violence in this country should be something that sends me running, screaming, into a wall with sheer depression and despair. But you prove that there are people working out there to change it. And I have no doubt that you and your team at Jubilee House are instrumental in massive change. It's actually been an honour to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you. I've had a great time. It's been really good.
Thank you for joining us and listening to this story. I hope you've been inspired. And if you would like to support the Women's Fund for Scotland, search for us online and listen out for our other podcast episodes.